For my friends, that I would show you how to use ChatGPT to make contracts way faster. First of all, I'm a lawyer and I recommend this video be followed by lawyers. I imagine a lot of people who aren't lawyers would like to know how to do this, but I have studied contract drafting for years and years. I studied 3 semesters in law school. I've been practicing for several years. I've reviewed many contracts. I've been to court with contracts. I've read other people's court cases that have gone to court because of contracts. Even though ChatGPT is awesome, it is not perfect. It makes lots of mistakes, and you should not use ChatGPT to get legal advice. You should get help from a lawyer. But I will say that if you choose the right lawyer, then they will help you solve your problems faster and cheaper by using advanced tools like ChatGPT. So you're welcome to watch, but again, as I'll get into in a little bit, you should definitely only do this if you are a lawyer or working with your lawyer. So I had several people make suggestions on different contracts. One of them looks really fun. I might do it later, and that is how to make a contract for a hitman. But I didn't want to do that this time. Instead, what I'm going to talk about is how to make a lawyer representation agreement contract. This is a contract that you use when you work with a lawyer. So what I'm going to do is you're going to see my screen. I'm going to share ChatGPT with you, and I'm going to walk you through the steps that I use for making a contract. So the first thing is there are some contracts that I know how to do really well. If you are a business attorney, you probably are really good at doing express waivers. Express waivers are contracts that like you sign if you're going to go to the gym to work out or the trampoline park, and you say, we're not responsible if you break your arm. Those are really easy contracts, and a lot of us who do contract drafting probably have 3 or 4 different versions that we can tweak for any business. But still, if I'm going to do one of those contracts, I'll still come to ChatGPT, because if I ask it about a contract, it will sometimes give me interesting suggestions that get my brain working a little bit. So it helps me do better work. So I'm going to just start with a real simple question. So here I'm saying, what are the essential parts of an engagement agreement between a client and an attorney? And I will generally fast forward through this so that you don't have to sit here and watch me reading. That makes a video too long. But just so you know, I do read the output of these things. So when you're watching this video, it's going to zip through real fast. It takes longer in real life. Okay, so it talks about termination of service. This is something that a lot of attorneys care about. If they have a client who either can't pay or is dishonest, or something along those lines, then they want to be able to get out of that agreement. And you might say, really? Would clients lie to their attorneys? And yes, I've seen it happen many times. And a court will usually let an attorney out of an agreement if their client is dishonest with them. Okay, so there's a lot of things missing from this. It's kind of interesting. Usually when I'm using ChatGPT, it likes to do 12 items. And so you can oftentimes see when a blog post or whatever is created by ChatGPT, because it always has 12. In this case, it gave me 14, which means ChatGPT has recently changed. So there's a couple things in here that I don't see, and that's fine, because I didn't tell ChatGPT enough specific details about what I wanted. And so I will say this. All right, so I am writing in here, I'm an attorney and I'm considering adding flat fee services and subscription services to my options. What are some legal considerations for my retainer agreement when dealing with these types of options? Are there any ethical concerns that should be addressed? So first of all, right now in the US, the subscription lawyer services are becoming a little bit more common. I'd say they're still a little on the rare side. My firm has been offering them for 2 years. The thing that I'm curious to see if ChatGPT is going to raise is ethical concerns related to whether or not an attorney's subscription fees are earned at the beginning of the work, or if they're earned only after they've done a certain amount of work. Because different states have different opinions on this, and generally speaking, I think the safe answer is that an attorney's contract should say that that the fees for the subscription are there to reserve attorney time, so that way the fees can be earned at the beginning of the work rather than afterwards, because if they're earned afterwards, the attorney's going to have to put them in their trust account, and that's a pain in the butt. Okay, ChatGPT did okay. It kind of addressed the ethical concern that I mentioned about refunds and unused services, but it didn't really give me any suggestions on how to resolve that issue. Thankfully, this is a topic that I've done a lot of research on because I've been doing subscription services for a while, and so I will tell ChatGPT how to handle this, but this is an example where ChatGPT didn't give the best advice. I'll just say this, that in my experience in using ChatGPT for legal research, I have found ChatGPT, the Pro version, which is what we're using here, to be what I would say is 90% awesome. Like just truly mind-numbingly awesome. 5% okay. 5% okay, and then 5% pretty bad. And so this item number 4, I would say the fact that it didn't talk about the ethical concerns, isn't surprising, but is also a pretty important failure on ChatGPT. And this is why you're going to want to have a legal mind who knows at least a little bit about what they're doing, running the controls of ChatGPT rather than an uninformed person. So there's another topic about subscriptions that commonly comes up that's not addressed yet, so we're going to bring that up, and that is we want to know what we should do about installment plans, which is not the same thing as a subscription, but that's where you make payments over a certain number of months, but the entire fees are earned at the beginning. Okay, this is good. Some of the concerns that I mentioned regarding subscriptions that were not mentioned earlier were mentioned here. And so again, it's not going into detail, but it is giving us a little hint that there's ethical concerns about when a fee is earned, and that's a very valid and good point. There's also here, if the portion of the fee is unearned at the start of the engagement, and it may need to be held in a client trust account until the services are rendered. And that's important. And state bars do go after their attorneys if they don't handle money and put it in a trust account properly. What it didn't talk about here is collections or recovering money. And so it did talk a little bit about interest and fees and such. And so that's not really enough. So let's ask it. What happens if a client agrees to installment payments and the work is completed, but the client stops paying before the full fee is paid? Okay, so now it talks about collection provisions. You notice this was not in any of the discussions until I prompted ChatGPT about that. That means I had to know that this is a potential problem and then tell it that we need to deal with it. Something that I didn't mention here, and I don't actually want in my representation agreement, but some attorneys might want, is whether or not you can have an attorney's lien on the deliverables. So classic example, I allow people to make 12 monthly payments for trademarks because it commonly takes a year for a trademark process to be completed. But lately the trademark office has been going faster, and so we've seen some finish in 8 or 9 months. And so they might say, well, I don't want to make the last 3 payments because I got my trademark. And so can we put a lien on that deliverable? And in some states you can. And so I would prefer to just use regular debt collection methods rather than attorney's lien. And then also I think I can go after attorney's lien remedies if I need to. But it didn't mention it. And so that is just a little bit of a gap that is not a big deal to me, but is notable. So what are some of the most common ethical issues that have led to attorneys being disciplined and are related to fee agreements and engagement letters? So unreasonable fees, yes, that's a big deal. And a very hot topic. Lack of clarity in fee agreements, okay, that's a good point. Failure to communicate fees, very, very common problem. That's why I do almost entirely flat fees. Improper handling of retainers and trusts. Unfortunately, we see that happen all of the time. Non-refundable retainers are generally frowned upon unless they are truly earned upon receipt and are clearly explained. Okay, this is an example of me not knowing about something, and so ChatGPT brought something to my attention that was new to me. I have never heard of someone doing a non-refundable retainer, so I'm going to have to ask ChatGPT a little bit more about that. Okay, so let's learn more about fee splitting let's learn more about non-refundable retainers. Okay. Okay, I understand now. So non-refundable retainers are actually something that may be a little bit more common that I just have never heard it called that. But this is where you charge a flat fee for work, and apparently the amount of work needed is maybe a lot less than might normally be done. And so the full fee is retained and kept even though the amount of work needed was a lot less than expected. Here's an example. So I don't do very many evictions anymore, but I used to. I used to do a lot of them. And so we did an eviction fee where we charged a certain amount of money, and half of that was earned immediately, and the other half was earned when we filed with the court. And so if we earned the first half, and then we called the customer and they're like, fine, I'll pay. And then they paid. And so we thought we were going to have to serve them notice once, twice, 3 times, document things, gather evidence, prepare for court, all of those things. And instead it took one phone call. Do we have a duty to refund the part of that first part? And so without addressing the things that are talked about here, we might. So we will make sure that we draft around this. Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and start drafting a contract because I think that we've got enough background information. So here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to type it out and then I'm going to explain what I'm doing. All right, so here's what I wrote. I would like help drafting a retainer agreement for my firm. It needs to have a space at the top for an explanation of the services offered, and my team should be able to customize this section to the needs of the client. The services I offer are litigation-related work, one-time engagements, ongoing subscriptions, and advising. One-time engagements are typically flat fee and may be paid upfront in one payment, split into multiple payments in case the services have optional components or an installment payment plan. Litigation work is always hourly, and my rates are $360 for attorney time, $250 for law clerk or paralegal time, and $180 for other billable time. Subscriptions are for ongoing support and are billed monthly. Money will not be held in trust, and the fees are earned at the beginning of each pay period because the attorney will reserve a certain amount of time for that client. Subscription clients get discounted flat fee services when additional billable services are needed. When an installment plan is used, all payments are due even if the work is completed before the last installment is made. Clients may not cancel an installment plan once work is begun. In any case, if work is performed and payment is not made, the law firm has the right to charge reasonable interest on any past due amounts and recover any legal and debt collection fees related to the past due amount. Any incidental charges such as filing fees, process service fees, mailing fees, and etc. are billed at cost plus 8% unless such fees are included in a flat fee service. I did forget one thing. And this is something people commonly forget to put into a contract, and that is we're just going to say which states laws apply and where any disputes will be handled. So we're going to hit enter. We're going to get something pretty good, but it's not going to be perfect. Okay, so first of all, you're going to notice that this is way too short. And so it numbered it, section 1, section 1.1, etc. So this is nice. This is the top section. Back at the beginning, we asked it what kinds of things should be in a representation agreement, and it didn't do that. And so this is a common problem with ChatGPT, and this is why I always ask those questions first, because we need to go back and figure out what wasn't included. So I believe the responsibilities of the attorney wasn't in there, client's responsibilities, conflict of interest, confidentiality, they weren't in there, file retention and return, amendments and modifications. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Governing law, that's in there. Okay, so what we need is okay, so please add additional sections for the following: responsibilities of the attorney, client's responsibilities, the process and conditions for termination of service, the importance of confidentiality and explanation of the attorney-client privilege, the importance of candor and honesty. Please make room for the confidentiality and candor sections near the beginning of the document between sections 1 and 2. So I want those to be here because I'm confident that people will look at the fee section. And so I really want people to pay attention also to the confidentiality section because people make mistakes with that a lot. I'm sure if you're an attorney watching this, you know what I'm talking about. And then, boy, sometimes people forget to be candid and honest. Also something that, as an attorney, you know about. Okay, so it still feels a little short to me, but that's okay. Let's just look through what we have. Okay, so here's a cool trick. So right here, we see the importance of confidentiality, and then the attorney-client privilege. So I'm going to actually tell ChatGPT to revise section 2.1. Okay, so what it did is it just replaced and rewrote 2.1 so that I could go in and just delete 2.1 and put this in here instead. And so it did a pretty good job. Let me just read it more carefully. Okay, that's really good. I actually like that a lot. I would have thought way longer about how to do that. Okay, and we're going to also have it revise section 3. Okay, so if you're an attorney, or maybe if you've ever hired an attorney, you know that clients sometimes are afraid to tell the truth and afraid to tell everything. And this is extremely frustrating. And if you're an attorney, you have wanted to drop a client for this reason, because you think that you have the important knowledge and you take action, and then you find out that they did not tell you something important, and it screws you. So it is really good for clients to be honest with their attorneys. And so I want this to be positively worded, not negatively worded. So ChatGPT is pretty good at this. Okay, so sometimes ChatGPT gives you 2 versions to choose from. You have to be careful. If you click on it accidentally, then you choose that. So let's see here. And when I say this to my clients, I usually say, I work for you. I give you the best service and advice when you give me all of the information in an accurate way. I am not going to go talking about you behind your back, and I say things like that. So let's see what it did and if we like it. So these are okay. I like this. I like the second one a little bit better, but I'm going to personally rewrite it, and say, instead of candor and honesty, maybe I'll say that, but maybe I'll just begin with, you can trust us. So it says the foundation is built on trust and open communication. Well, that's kind of the same thing, but we can say it in fewer words. So I'm going to pick this one. Okay. And by the way, if you ever pick the wrong one, you can switch between them. Okay, let's go back to our contract. So here's what I'm going to do. So I have a blank Google Doc open, and I'm going to share this with you. So if you're watching this video, look in the comments section, and there's going to be a link to this so that you can see the end result. And also I'm going to put in there the prompts that I used to get this. So I hit the copy button, and I'll just tell you now that actually Google Docs is better than other editors for this, because now Google Docs has this feature called Edit Paste from Markdown. Markdown is like a simple text system that looks like bullets and underlines and things like that, and you can convert it into bold and italics and things just by pasting from Markdown. And so that preserves the formatting. If you just paste from ChatGPT, you sometimes get the black background or light gray text. Is really weird. So we're going to get rid of this. And I'm going to leave room up there for my comments later. So law firm retainer agreement, scope of services. Now keep in mind this does not have our updates that we did. So let's go back to ChatGPT. And here is updated section 2.1. Okay, and then section 3. Now, there is a little problem. You see here that it uses language like the client is encouraged. So I personally would prefer to write this in first person. So I would go through and revise it, stuff like that. Okay, so now here's one thing that's not in here that that I would want in an agreement like this. And so we're going to go back to ChatGPT, and so we need to have something that allows us to continue and add additional services to our agreement without creating a new agreement. Okay, that's not bad. Short and sweet. Could I write better? I probably could. And in fact, I do actually like my retainer agreement a little bit better than this. Oops, I didn't use the right mode. Edit, paste from Markdown. But this is not bad. Now, you'll notice that these fonts are pretty good size, and so I could shrink this down and get it onto fewer pages, and I probably will if I were going to use this. But some contracts that have more importance to them, I will go in and spend more time, like I did in this one, going into section by section and having it revise. So one time I had a document that needed to fit on the back of an invoice. And so you've probably seen these before. And so it needed to be short, and there was a lot of things that needed to be in there. And so I needed to go through and refine that language, and ChatGPT is really good at that. And so sometimes I'll say, you need to write this for someone at a 6th grade reading level, or simplify the language that an average business person would use, and it does that really well. And in fact, I might even suggest doing that before using an agreement like this one. But we don't need to do that in this video. I want you to know that that's possible, and to see the steps that I use for creating a contract. So I will put into this document at the top here all of the prompts that I've used, and that way you can try to use my technique for your own purposes. And good luck, and if you have any suggestions, leave it in the comment. I'd love to hear them.